everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Hansi of the Almighty Blind Guardian. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Good to be there. Hi, Alex.
It's
Pleasure.
it's great to be able to talk with you again. We got the new Blind Guardian album, The God Machine, out now. This record is absolutely awesome. Was your intention for this album to just make a direct continuation of Legacy of the Dark Lands, or was this meant to be like a new beginning for Blind Guardian?
Certainly a new beginning. There was no need for us to continue the legacy of the Darklands road right now. I'm sure we go back to orchestral stuff at a certain point, but then it's probably really limited to, the Blind Guardian Twilight Orchestra, and the Blind Guardian music will evolve into a direction which we have just started with the God Machine. I believe the more intense, more focused on the band stuff is more to the liking of all the musicians in the band at the moment. And I doubt that we are going to leave it within the next 10 years. I think this is pretty much what we are intending to do. Musically, it's a new beginning for sure.
Do you go into the studio, whether it would be for this album or any Blind Guardian album, do you always go into the studio or into the songwriting with like maybe a preconceived idea or a certain vision, or is there a lot of like rolling the dice and experimentation and improvising involved?
Yeah, it's more really being as open-minded as possible. And it is a trial and error approach in the beginning. But of course, there are always goals like, if you did an album like Legacy of the Darklands, how can we, find a new direction after more than 20 years working on the orchestral stuff? And is there a need for a new direction? And we all felt that. So this was something we had in mind from the beginning. But other than that, we have to, rely on the source, which comes up with sort of whatever musical output, and then we have to take it from there. And of course, once we have taken a certain direction, then we have the chance to not manipulate, but put in sort of influence into the whole thing to drive it even more into a direction. So when the songs were composed, or a majority of the songs, we decided that the production should also intensify that aggressive feeling of the music, and that there should be more of a band-orientated production in general, and something which is more related to the protagonists of the band than to any technical aspect or to any orchestral approach.
Blind Guardian is one of those bands where not only do I always look forward to the music, but I also really look forward to the lyricism that's incorporated in here. I feel like every time there's a new Blind Guardian album, it's not just a musical experience, but it really is like a cinematic experience. Like I'm waiting for a new novel or a new film coming out as well. And I feel that way all the way from Battalions of Fear to now. Has there ever been a time where maybe a lyrical idea or a conceptual element, because I know that you incorporate that with you've incorporated that with Demons and Wizards, do you also think of a concept that dictates the music as well for Blind Guardian in a way, or do you prefer to have the music before lyrics come into play?
Usually it is the music. Even with Demons and Wizards, in most of the cases, there is the music, and that drives me into a direction. So it is with Blind Guardian. But some things on the way, be it literature or reality, they have an impact, and they may just, drive me into a certain direction of thinking, which already has an impact on the music. But for most of it, it's the music. Then I let the music do the talking. Sometimes it's words I'm singing when I'm creating the melody lines, and they, give me an idea in which direction a song could go. But the lyrics usually, and the even the ideology in the lyrics come second.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to that, like, do you almost, is it fair to say that you need to be in a certain state of mind in order to put pen to paper on lyrics? Do you need to like look for inspiration or kind of be in a certain element to let that creative energy flow? Or does inspiration just strike when you least expect it?
Yeah, it strikes. It comes naturally almost. I just have to be aware of the moment, but be it when I'm reading or, yeah, as said, in a real life situation, there's something which somehow draws my attention. And once that moment has been given, everything is like in a constant evolution. It's a flow which I just have to follow. So it's not that much I have to think of. What always is a difficulty is the patterns or the phrases. As I said, most of it when I do my vocal melodies is more than mumbling, but it dictates the syllables and all that stuff. And so I have to come up with suitable words and phrases, which on one hand matches the phrase, the number of syllables, but on the other hand keeps the flow. Like, you know, if it's a fast part, for example, with a difficult melodic structure already, and then with a phrase which demands a rhythmical pattern which, you know, cannot be altered, then yeah, this sometimes takes a while until I find the right words, but they will always come, I'm sure about. And then there are, of course, the magic words, that is what John, for example, calls demoitis. If I sang something particular, it has such a strong approach, you cannot get rid of these words.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah, and I can only imagine, though, nothing could be more heartbreaking than having the best lyrics ever, and then they're always like one syllable over or under like every arrangement.
Yes, that is a nightmare. The worst when it comes to this was really A Night at the Opera, because I had spectacular lyrics, and this was one of the rare occasions where a lot of them were prepared prior to the singing, even before, you know, we really went into the studio for the recordings. I had the melody lines and I had an idea what to sing about, and I took a lot of effort into the lyrics. Ever since, you know, I'm more or less going just in with structured sentences, and I make them fit when I'm on the way of recording them.
Fair enough. You know, everybody has their own methodology. And being that Blind Guardian does explore many different subject matters within the music, you know, I've always said that, you know, one thing that I think makes you so great as a vocalist is that you're able to look outside, whether it will be historical elements, the present, or the future, and be able to put that into music. I've noticed a lot of external sources of inspiration, but does your personal life or your personal experiences for either yourself or any member in Blind Guardian also maybe influence a lyrical idea?
For me, yes. The other guys, they do not have such a strong impact, and they just, you know, let me do whatever I want to do. It's a really rare occasion that one of the guys come and say, well, I don't like that topic, or, you know, you go into a too harsh or intense direction here, can you change that? It might happen like 2 or 3 times in the history of Blind Guardian. I've never heard anything about it. And if they have something to complain, they hide it. But yeah, it's a very rare occasion. But for me, of course, my life plays, my regular life plays an important role. For instance, if we speak about the God Machine, Let It Be No More, the phase when we did the songwriting for it was the phase when my mother was passing away. Of course, that had an impact, and that needs to be reflected in the lyrics as well. And then, yeah, I allow that to be a part. And as you said, in Demons and Wizards, it's sometimes even more obvious, like in Fiddler on the Green, or in Love's Tragedy is Thunder. These were reality-related topics, you know, and it was not necessarily my life which was influenced strongly by it, but, you know, I caught that attention to real life, and then I bring that in a suitable way.
Mm-hmm. And also when, you know, because Blind Guardian has so many albums out now, when you're playing live, you have to, you know, put a set list together of multiple albums. Do you feel that when you're like, you know, playing a later song before a couple of earlier works, and, you know, you're mixing the set list around that maybe could add a little bit of context or a little bit of new meaning when you're, you know, playing songs from different eras into one, you know, hour and a half that you play?
I find it extremely difficult. You know, the more classics we have to, you know, really allow the deserved space to new stuff. That's something we are always discussing in the band. With the touring we have had this year, which was dedicated to Somewhere Far Beyond, it was a little underpresent, I have to say. We just played one song of The God Machine and another one of At the Edge of Time. I believe that the mixture of songs we have created over the years allow us to come up with a spectacular set list almost every evening, and we could really skip the whole songs from the day before, leaving the classics like the Bart song out, and it still would be an as entertaining evening for the people. That makes it difficult alone, but having musically songs like Wheel of Time or Sacred Words, for example, they are long and they are very epic, and they both tell a different story, but in terms of a live concert, a quite similar story. And how to involve such songs into a set list is a kind of challenge every evening. And therefore, it is a little bit of trial and error again, but after a while, we establish a setup in a regular tour mode that makes it possible to exchange some of the songs. As for the content, I do not believe that the lyrical content is so important to people when we're playing live. It's more like the sing-along stuff and the more epic stuff needs to somehow go along together, and they need to deliver the same impression. If that's the case, and we have a build up with a climax, then this is the ideal solution.
Yeah. Well, you know, you do have a lot of diehard fans that I know that every fan is probably requesting like that one deep cut that you guys probably never played in your entire career, even after you made the album or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I find unique about Blind Guardian is because I feel like it's not just a set list, you know, to accommodate to your fans and, you know, having the classics and to promote the new album. But I also feel Blind Guardian is also a very setting driven band. Like, I would love to hear for a 20th anniversary of A Night at the Opera to for you guys to like play with like a symphony and like a Baroque theater or something like that.
Nice.
But like if you were playing like at a Hellfest or a Download or a Wacken European festival, maybe you go full on pedal to the metal and whatnot. Do you find that maybe like the setting that you're in, depending on either the venue or the tour package, could also make an impact on the set list as well?
Yeah, it does. When playing festivals, you want to convince people. You have to consider there are people who are not aware or familiar with Blind Guardian, and you want to get them into the pool of your fans as well. So a festival setup always is driven into such direction. You go for the hits, and then you go for the most impressive songs, while when playing for our fans, we of course can win the play field a bit, and then, you know, even go for experimental stuff. What is difficult is the setup of songs in Blind Guardian. The patterns, they do not repeat themselves, and they are sometimes not self-explanatory. So once we're on the road, we cannot change the pool of songs too much because there is no chance for rehearsals. And if we rehearse the songs, we would have to dedicate a lot of time to these songs to grow. And after a while, you really feel which songs are the ones which fit into the context of a particular touring setting the best. And this is always what we are relating to. But you just mentioned A Night at the Opera. That is a hell of an album, and I would love to play it live. We haven't found a way to really maintain that so far. And this is something to look up for the future, but it demands, again, a lot of time. Therefore, we just go for one, let's say maximum 2 songs of A Night at the Opera if we plan to go on tour again. But what I feel is that with the God Machine, there will be also a change in the philosophy of a Blind Guardian concert, which means there will be a wider range of unexpected songs in 2023. This year was very solid and subtle. There was certainly stuff you would expect, and it went extremely well. But next year, I hope we can be a bit surprising. What I find out this year, and also with the touring of Demons and Wizards some years ago, if there is a stable set list, the stamina of the band is stronger and better. So the more songs you change from day to day, the more difficult is the performance for the artist, because you cannot let yourself just fall into the set. You really have to keep your focus on it all the time, and that is better with a quite constant set, and this we are going to keep for next year as well.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, it's really cool when a band, changes the set every night. There's a lot of bands that are doing that. And I give them credit to having to, rehearse like 40 plus songs before going on tour. But there is also developing, like, I feel like sometimes, and I think that's a representative of what we see in like live albums, like when there's a perfect set list, you can't beat that. Like when you and the band is just as entitled to play that for 30 nights in a row as a band would be to change it up.
Yeah, exactly. When we prepared for Somewhere Far Beyond, we also realized, well, once it is dedicated to Somewhere Far Beyond, it's great to stay in that era. Of course, you can go back like 3 or 4 years. That's not too much, and play Valhalla or banished from Sanctuary. And of course, there is room for new material. But the closer the songs are related, the more organic it feels, and the easier it is to perform them. And of course, Somewhere Far Beyond alone demands like 45 minutes. So a big part of the set is already dedicated to this album. And it just felt right to, stay faithful and close to this era, and I believe that the people really enjoyed it.
Definitely. I love how, because I was going to ask you, I mapped this question out before we started, because this year it's 20 years of A Night at the Opera and 30 years of Somewhere Far Beyond. And I was going to ask you, to celebrate the 30 years, what some of the memories were of that album. And you just took the words out of my mouth. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Pure luck. As always.
But it's funny too, because being that it is 30 years of Somewhere Far Beyond and 20 years of A Night at the Opera, I feel like those were massive turning points though in the Blind Guardian catalog, because when you like compare Tales from the Twilight Worlds or Follow the Blind, and and before that, and there's such an evolution in Somewhere Far Beyond, and then at Night at the Opera I felt like opened so many doors to the point where I feel like Blind Guardian could almost be a symphony in itself, or even maybe make like a Blind Guardian musical in a way. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that Somewhere Far Beyond and A Night at the Opera really did represent massive turning points in Blind Guardian's journey?
Yeah, they did. A Night at the Opera was strongly influenced by the orchestral songs we have had composed at that point, even though none of them is reflected on the orchestral album. But there was always that input from the orchestral songs coming when we were working on it. And it's the strongest, apart from Beyond the Red Mirror, on A Night at the Opera, because that was the initial starting point where we really did the first album after we announced, well, there will be such orchestral album at one point. It took forever then, but we didn't know when we did A Night at the Opera. So, and then There Was Silence was the first attempt to really give an idea to the people what we were talking about. And of course, it was at points even exaggerated on the album. If you listen to the rest of the album, leaving Maiden and the Minstrel Night and then There Was Silence out, there is not a lot of orchestration. It's really the band who's doing the orchestration. And that was kind of something very new. And that was the only way we could liberate ourselves from Nightfall in Middle-earth, which was in many ways also a finishing point, like Legacy of the Darklands was right now. With Nightfall, we knew everything was told in regard to old Blind Guardian. There must be something new. And with A Night at the Opera, we took a risk is maybe not the right word. We just put a strong statement in, even though we have explored so many dimensions with the mentioned Somewhere Far Beyond and all the albums afterwards, and we're still able to deliver something new. It was more like something done for the confidence of us as songwriters. We did not expect it to be that complex. We still thought it would be in the Blind Guardian universe, but we knew it would be different from what we have done before. And I also think it was considering the time, it was a very modern album. We involved stuff which I believe many people would not have expected Blind Guardian to have in the music, and they still fit it in. And that's the big accomplishment on A Night at the Opera.
Definitely, definitely. I think that opened so many doors. I think at this point, Blind Guardian could become industrial at this point, and people are still gonna appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. If you listen to Punishment Divine, for example, it's so not Blind Guardian, but on the other hand, it is. And it was, comparing to now, I think we're pretty much in control of everything we're doing, be it in the studio or on stage. When we did Night at the Opera, it was different. We were going beyond our abilities, and that makes that album so special for us. And I still feel it. Like a song, for example, Battlefield would be a great live song, but whenever we attempted to at least rehearse it, it was a complete failure. And I'm really anxious to see if it's going to happen one day, that we are able to really capture the essence of the song and make it a great live song. It would be a great live song, I'm sure.
I would love to hear that live. I would kill to hear that live. Keep practicing it. Don't give up.
But no, but it was really like when we go on tour, all the songs we play are in the same key. We recorded them and composed them. That's, like one line for us. But for Battlefields, I required trying the song 3/2 steps lower and all that stuff, and it doesn't work. It does not work so far. And we will not give up, but that's for sure a very difficult one.
Well, if you finally learn it, just save it for the encore, because that'd be the best Blind Guardian encore ever.
I hope so. But it's trial and error, and one fine day we will be there. Almost each of the songs. I would love to play Precious Jerusalem, for example, also. We never tried that so far. It would be even a great opener. I think it's one of the most underrated Blind Guardian openers.
Yeah, and going back to what I said too, where the context could change depending on the setting or the tour or whatever. I think it also depends on the order in the set list. I think there's been plenty of songs where it would work great as an opener, but they put it in the 8th or 9th song, and it's maybe not as strong as if it was the opening. And then there'd be plenty of songs that they open with, but that should have been saved for the encore. I think it really is, again, as you said, it's completely trial and error. I think every show is an opportunity to discover new things about your band.
That is true. But as you said, it's depending a lot on the song itself. If it's an opener and you don't use it as an opener, then the song might become a failure, which it wouldn't be if you use it the right way.
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is because I've always said that art is life, and just like life itself, it grows and it develops and, evolves into something even greater. Do you feel that conceptually, or the idea of a Blind Guardian album, do you think that the music itself could also evolve over time as you evolve as an artist and as your fans grow and develop as well? Or do you prefer every Blind Guardian album is more or less like a snapshot of who you and your bandmates are at that particular time?
I am a bit on the edge on this one, because I believe that it is a snapshot, and that in terms of production and the way an artist is approaching the song is very special at the initial point of creation and the initial point of first production. And this cannot be recreated in any way. But on the other hand, we've tried that so many times and came up with great results, even though that is my ideology. You have the magic moment, and the magic moment is the first one. But we never have given up trying, not only in re-recording stuff, like we have the anniversary of Somewhere Far Beyond, and we did a re-recording of this one. But we also did a lot of mixing of, because we thought, well, we can add something to it by just doing a remix or so. You win and you lose. It's always the same, but I think the first intention is always the best. That goes for almost everything. On the other hand, stuff evolves. If I look at a song like Lord of the Rings or the Bard song in terms of Blind Guardian, the way we are presenting the songs nowadays is not only because they are performed live, but also in the way we are performing them now naturally, depending on the evolution of the musicians and your understanding of the songs. And in these cases, the song grows and grows and wins and wins. And therefore, there is no just recipe which defines whether it's good to stay truthful to the original, or evolving and then finding out that you can do even better. But yeah, as I said, it's quite a challenging question, and I'm losing my tongue here. But
I'm notorious for asking the complex questions. So, but I think it's also fair to say, though, the longer you work on a song, the harder it is to kind of like maintain that moment or that spark that initially inspired it, right?
Yeah, let loose is always the most difficult thing, and that also goes for the initial point nowadays. Like when we do an album, like let's say The God Machine, we have so much experience and we know what we want to accomplish with the song. It's very easy to lose yourself always, and to go too far and then miss the perfect moment. But sometimes experience pays off a little bit. And I think the longer we are in the business, the better the idea is when that moment has been accomplished and reached. But on the other hand, it leads us 20 years back from the initial first composings of Legacy of the Dark Lands. It was maybe a mission and a different sort of album for us as well. But yeah, you can be misled by stuff like this.
Definitely. Well, as somebody who has spoken to your amazing fans as well, because not only is your music great, but I do think Blind Guardian has some of the greatest fans in heavy metal. I can tell you that they're all happy with your entire catalog, and they don't want you to go back and change a thing. So if you guys are losing sleep at that, just know you don't need to change a thing in your catalog.
That makes my life a bit easier.
I'm glad.
But the conflict is constantly existing, in everyone in the band.
Well, it wouldn't be a band if that didn't exist. So that's art. Art is not art without conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Great to talk with you again, and thank for always such a very intriguing and informative conversation. Is there just anything else with the release of The God Machine that you would like to promote in terms of tours? This will be uploaded in a few hours, so if it hasn't been announced yet, don't say it here.
Well, The God Machine hopefully enriches your life at the moment, especially for the US and North America. I have no idea when we're able to come back. I hope next year. But it's demanding times, and we're looking forward to come back. And there will be a time when we will tour with the God Machine in the US and Canada. But that's not right now.
Okay.
Enjoy life.
Well, we eagerly await your return, and it will be worth the wait as we know it. Thank you so much.
We do our best.
Everybody, we are here with Blind Guardian, The God Machine. It is out now on Nuclear Blast. Be sure to pick that up. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.